This is the second part of a tutorial to trace Sonic the Hedgehog head using the Bezier pen and using layers within Illustrator. So far we should have one layer that has all of the spikes that make up Sonic's hair and ear. We should have traced around his face, leaving a little gap for the fin that comes through his ears. We have traced his chin to cover up part of that face. We still need to put a little ear insert in as well. We have also created an eye domino and then put some ellipses on to make the eyes themselves. And we'll also have to put on a little bit of a smile as well. So here is my current progress. To make the little insert into the ear, we've got this gradient already chosen here, so it's a good time to do this just now. I'm going to use the pen tool. I'm going to come up to just below this point here, click, come down to the inner part of the ear, click and drag to match that curve. Use the Alt key to point just a little bit past the center point. Come across to the other side, click and drag to give it a bit of a curve. Point straight up, I think it's probably a good bit here, about halfway up. And then click and pull that out until you get a bit of a symmetrical ear shape. So that there needs to have this gradient. And we might want to add a bit more of the shadow in by dragging these corners out on that. We need to have a smile on his chin, so I'm just going to get the Bezier pen tool again, and I'm going to possibly need to see what's going on beneath the surface here. So I'm going to hide some of these layers and then just toggle. So Control Y toggles the visibility of the fills. So I'm going to click at the corner, and I can probably just do a single click here and bend that smile into place. And that's me done with that one. So back to my selection tool. I'm going to come back to the pen tool for the other part. Click at the corner of the mouth. Click and drag to put that curve into place, and then swap back to the selection tool. I want to take these two parts, so I'm going to use the Shift key to highlight both at the same time, and I'm going to give them quite a big stroke. So a 1-point stroke is not anywhere near strong enough for them. I'm going to maybe make it something like a 10-point stroke, and that won't show up until I do Control Y again to see through what's going on there. You can see that I haven't quite managed to line those up, so I'm just going to choose this and nudge it into place using the arrow keys. Actually, the reason it's looking like that is because it has a fill, so I want to give it a fill of none. So up here, fill none, because it was covering up part of the mouth there. And the same with this one here, we've got a little bit of a shadow insert there that also needs to have no fill. Choose that path, no fill. Okay, at this point it's probably worthwhile putting this, actually I'm just going to fix this ear here. I wasn't tracing it through, so not quite managed to match it up. Click on that arrow point, the anchor point there, move it in a little bit, click on this one here, drag it over a bit, and that's probably good enough. Okay, the nose, I can probably just take a simple ellipse here. Let me just Control Y to toggle and get it in the right place. I'm going to try and draw it from the center. So Alt, drag it out till it's roughly in place. And I'm going to try and use the reshape tool. I'm not sure if this will work actually. If I take that point there and then just go onto the line. Now, because it's a filled shape, it's not going to work. So let me just delete that and go back to our old friend, the Bezier Pen tool. Click at a corner, click at a bottom part and match, click to the side and match, click to the top and match, and click back to join and match. It needs a bit of tweaking, so I'm going to take that anchor point, move it down a little bit, take this handle, drag it in a little bit, and if I give that a black fill and Control Y, you can see that is looking pretty nose shaped. A little bit of a specular highlight on it, so just using the Alt key to draw from the center and fill that with white. Okay, so we're almost there with our Bezier trace of Sonic. The last thing that needs to be put in place here is the brow. And I'm actually going to put the brow onto its own separate layer. So let's just see where we're at just now. We've got this. I could possibly be doing with tweaking the end of here so that that anchor point is not overlapping the fin. So that's still needs a little bit more adjustment, but I'll sort that later. Okay, so I want to have a new layer for the brow. So I'm going to come down here to the layers and click on plus, create new layer. I'm going to move it to the top because it has to be above everything. And I'm going to call this brow. And this is one of the trickiest parts of the whole tracing process. So I'm going to switch off all the other layers. I seem to have managed to pop them out. There we go. Right, what I want is to trace this shape that wraps over the eye. So I'm going to get my Bezier Pen tool, and I'm going to start it somewhere in the middle here where it doesn't really matter. As long as I'm not overlapping this fin, it should be fine. So I'm just going to start with a point there. I'm then going to go to this start of the anchor, the eyebrow, and I'm going to start to then trace carefully the shape. So pulling this out to match that brow, coming down here to match the outer edge, using the Alt key to point back inside, coming up to where that should be, follow this down to the end. I'm not going to worry about this little wrinkle here, so I'm just going to put a point about here and drag that out a little bit. Might need adjusting later on. Follow this up till it changes direction again, which is about here. And then match that. Alt key to come back in. Come to here, match it up a little bit, round the top to where it changes direction there. Following down the curve of the brow to roughly about here, I could use Control Y and see through that. So I'm going to follow that curve down, maybe to about here. And then the Alt key to point back up and join back to my starting point. And if I do Control Y again to see what that looks like, it's a little bit rough in places, so white pointer tool and just make some adjustments. So this handle needs pulling in to get a smoother match here. This one needs adjusting to fit more neatly. This one here possibly needs a little bit of pulling out. And this one here also needs pulling out to give it a bit more curve. So something like that. If I switch on all of the other layers, we can see that we actually haven't covered up the eyes, or I haven't covered up my eyes. So I do actually need a little bit of smarter brow here. So I'm going to take this point here and just drag it up. I'm going to take this point here and drag it up. I'm going to take this point here and drag it up. And I might need to just tweak where that fin is, but that is our brow. The thing we need to do with the brow is to remove the stroke that's round about it. We don't want to see the outline of that. So select that brow, no stroke. And we probably again want to just see if we can match up in the gradient. We want to see if we can match the bits that are behind it. So coming in here, this blue is far too strong, so I'm going to take that down a little bit. Take it from here, bring it down a little bit to be lighter. Try and get it to fit this bit here. That's maybe not too bad. So it's blended itself in with the shape behind it. Okay, so having a look at our instructions, we've made the mouth, we've made the nose, we just need to, we've made this brow here, but we need to just outline it a little bit with a few thick strokes. So again, we want to just switch off these lower layers, Control Y to toggle, and then with the Bezier Pen tool I want to outline, click, and then maybe down to here and click and drag. And I want to take that stroke and I want to make sure that it is nice and thick, maybe about 10 point. This little bit here, I'm going to click, so I'm going to swap tools first. So back to selection, back to pen to start a new pen selection. Click, come up to where it's changing direction up here, click and drag, something like that. Alt key to drag this in a little bit, don't want it racing off to the end there. And then click and drag just to finish that bit there. And then finally, I'm going to do this brow over here. So again, swap tools, selection, pen tool, new brow, click, click and drag, click and drag, and I think that's possibly as done. Control Y. Obviously the problem with that is that they all have these extra fills. So we need to take each of those and go up and make sure that the fill is set to none. This shape here, fill set to none. This shape here, fill set to none. I'm not doing a selection, am I? There we go, fill set to none. Fill set to none. And finally, switch all the layers on and admire our Sonic the Hedgehog. To really appreciate what we've done here, we should also hide this tracing layer so we can't see the original bitmap at all. There are obviously some improvements that can be made to parts of this. You know, the lines here are a little bit too thick, the fin's not quite fitting, but the white pointer tool here is going to let you tweak each of these shapes just as you need them to get the final special effect that you're looking for. So you should be able to achieve something that's looking something like this.